lifestyle elements, because a lot of things people are doing daily or periodically can also interfere or impact how they're moving every day. So there's a lot of habits people are not aware of that contribute to, creating joint pain, moving your joints out of alignment, and impacting your muscle performance. So I'll also review all of that. So how did I get started? Well, I basically, from head to toe, there's not a part of me that's not been injured, that's had
Oh,
joint
really?
aches of pain. Yeah, oh yes, aches and
Oh,
pains. Just every part of me has probably struggled in the last, I don't know, probably started when I was probably about, 25. So mid-20s started, so basically I've done a lot. I did exercise all through school, when I left school, college, university, and then through my working life in finance. So that's 20 years in finance I spent. And there wasn't a year where there was something going on, like bulging disc in lower back, had shoulder issues, knee, ankle, wrist, elbow, and
if
yeah,
if
so
I
jumping. Hmm?
if I may ask, why was that? Why did are you sort of accident prone, or you just this is just
I,
what's happened to you in life,
oh,
or
I'd
what?
come into that. Yeah, I'd come into
Okay,
that. But
get
yes,
it.
I've had go through various different rehabs, but nobody could really explain why there was so many, time after time, because exercise is supposed to be good for you, right? you know.
Exactly,
So
exactly. Yeah.
I trained as a personal trainer about 7 years ago, as I thought, oh, okay, if I know a bit more about technique and principles of strength training and all of that, it will help me avoid getting injured. But that didn't help. It still happened.
It's,
And near where I used to work in central London, where I used to be in finance, there was a movement clinic down the road. So I thought, oh, this
okay.
sounds interesting. They're talking about
Yeah.
holistic lifestyle. And the movement coach there, he says, before I will train anyone, everyone has to go through an assessment. So,
Right.
oh, this sounds interesting, like a movement MOT. And
Yeah.
that's when it highlighted all of the imbalances in my body. And he explained clearly what was going on, why I was always getting injured. And
Mhm.
basically, a lot of joints were slightly out of alignment. So when you looked at my posture, one shoulder was slightly higher than the other. My head was slightly off center. One
Right.
hip was slightly higher than the other. One ankle was a little bit tighter. One part of the hip joint was slightly tighter. And all
Mm.
of those imbalances, if you're doing anything high intensity or lifting heavy weights, the foundations are weak. And the saying is, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So
Mm.
it's like having a table and one leg is always shorter, and you're wondering why.
Yes.
So that is kind of what was happening in the body. And then I said, oh, this sounds really interesting. And he explained the principles of movement science, the courses I need to do to go on to sort of get more into this area of study. And
Right.
so that started me on that journey. And I took a break from finance to work in a gym. That was
Uh-huh.
3 years ago. And then
Right.
obviously I've not been back. Not been back
So
to
the bug just kind of hit you. Kind of hit you. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes, so that sort of sent me on this new journey. So it's a lifelong study journey, study put into practice. The more clients you work with, the more
Mhm.
exposure you get to all of the differences and the imbalances in the body, and the more people you can end up helping. But it's very interesting
Yes,
topic.
yes, indeed. I guess like me as well too. Like I was working all kinds of hours, like that God sent, more or less. I was working those hours, but
Mm-hmm.
then I ended up with fibromyalgia. So then I
Mm-hmm.
realized I've got to put health to the forefront of my business. If you can't be functional and keep going and working, and keep moving, you
Mm-hmm.
just not able to keep working. You know, I
Exactly.
think
It was
for
really, yeah.
entrepreneurs, you are your biggest asset, really, as an
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneur. Yeah. So
Exactly.
that's interesting and exciting that you
Yeah.
decided to do that as well.
Yeah, so I know
To
how much working with a movement coach benefited me. And it's a case of, well, people don't know about all of these areas of joint health. And it's not just, there are so many other professions and practitioners that are in the joint health arena, but a lot of people don't know of how they help. So I guess that's where I'm going with my business as well. It's like holding
yes.
workshops. So it's speaking about all of these topics and areas, and getting guest speakers, just like you have guest speakers on your show, and it's sharing all of this information with everyone to know that there is so much help out there that they can sort of, they can move themselves forward.
So, yes, in terms of movement, then, do you recommend? Because you see people at the gym, they're lifting weights, they're doing this, they're doing that, and sometimes they're doing it quite quickly. So, do you recommend fast movement or slower movement?
And both. The thing is, the faster
Okay.
you're going, the less control you have over the movement. So unless you can control it in certain conditions, the imbalances or the poor movement quality will just be amplified when you're moving fast. So both have benefits, because the speed comes with power, and as year on year, we can lose the power, which is what keeps us sort of strong and fast reactions, to stop ourselves from falling on the ground if we trip over. So you need to react fast. So fast movements are good, but if they're not controlled or the joints are not aligned properly, then it can create more, a bigger impact in terms of your joint health.
Right. Okay. So, can you give us a sample or an idea? I know you can't really physically show us, and I know you have various videos and so on your Facebook profile and LinkedIn profile. But can you maybe describe some of the movements or give us an idea of some of the movements?
Yeah, so in terms of how I work, so everybody starts off with a movement MOT, just like I received when with the movement coach I worked with. So we need to know what's going on in the body. So it's a head to toe assessment, lasts about 75 minutes, 60 to 75 minutes. And what we're doing is we're checking all of the joint ranges of motion. So every joint has a predefined range of motion, like the head and the neck. It could go in all sorts of directions. And the problem is, if one side you can only tilt it to here, and then the other side you can go a lot further, there's obviously an imbalance there. So we need to know what's the difference between left and right, because in the body, for every action, there's a reaction. So if certain muscles are too tight, then others have been lengthened and potentially weakened. So the body likes balance: front, back, left, right, top, bottom, up and down. And if it's too out of balance, then that sort of means it's not very happy, basically.
So the first assessment is an hour and a bit longer.
Yes, and it's insightful. So it's and
what, you ask questions, or you go through a physical check of people, or
just what I've done. So it's a case of tilt your head to one side, to the other. Is this feet really tight? Are you shooting pains down the arm? Where else are you feeling it? If you say, oh no, it feels similar, fine, then move on. Then it's a case of the shoulder joint. So the shoulder joint and then the shoulder blade at the back, because they work in unison. So a lot of people sitting all day, hunched over their desks or looking at their phone, looking down, it sort of tend to sort of close off the muscles at the front. They get a lot shorter and they get tighter. The problem with that is when something's happening at the front, some opposite is happening at the back. So the muscles can get longer and weaker and not able to support how the shoulder complex moves. So it's a case of, are the muscles at the front too tight? I'll ask you to, go into certain moves, and you'll say, oh yes, that's really tight, or I'm feeling it here. And then we'll look at the back, the shoulder blades. So a lot of people who sit in all day, your arm, I'm not sure if you can see, they're by your side, you're never moving it. The problem with that, your shoulder blades are not getting worked. So I ask you, can you move your shoulder blades without, moving all of your arms? And if you haven't got that mind muscle connection to the shoulder blades, then it can increase your likelihood of having an injury at the front, because it all works together. Right. And then we'll look at the hips, how they're moving, because we're sitting all day. Again, your hips are fixed, and your pelvis is in a certain position. That creates other issues as well. So we look at how every movement the hip joint's supposed to make. You'll tell me if you feel any pain. You let me know, oh, this one feels a bit restricted. And basically head to toe. And then all of that information is used to design your corrective exercise program. So it's the items inside will be some stretches, some joint mobilization, and some muscle activation, and some strength work. And all of those elements are used to try and rebalance the body back to baseline. So, left, right, front, back, top, bottom, rebalance the body. So, to make sure we're moving you away from pain and back to a position of strength. And then we can start elevating your strength levels. So everything's working in unison and together and in harmony. Body needs to maintain a balance and in harmony. So that's the goal.
That makes perfect sense. So how often do you recommend doing these exercises and these strengthening movements? How often a week, say?
Generally every other day, but it depends. Some things like stretching, it depends how tight the muscle is potentially. So if it's a targeted stretch, it depends how tight your muscle is. So some people, I'll ask you, can you do this one stretch every single day? For other people, it's like, okay, if you work this program every other day, that'd be fine. But I also I might give them a list of 6 exercises, but I'll say prioritize items A and B, because everybody's busy. So I understand you're tired, you forget. So if you think, I have to do all these exercises, I'll say, just do 1 or 2, because something, in this instance, something is always better than nothing. So even if you only do the same exercise every day, it will move you closer. So yes, so every other day, generally, it might be, I tend not to make the program longer than 30 minutes. So 15 to 30 minutes. Otherwise, people are less likely to do it. So I've learned less is more. Less is more. And you can
better doing something than nothing, as you say.
Absolutely, because it's the repetition, it's the body learning and retraining how it needs to move, or how the muscle length and the tension needs to change. And that's what moves you forward. So yes, less is always more, but consistency is key.
Yes, that's very good.
Yes.
So have you found generally any part of the body that is sort of the weakest or needs the most sort of work that you find with people? Have you found that to be the case?
Oh gosh, I think hips. Hips are impacted if you're sitting, you're standing, you're lying down. Whereas your shoulder, if it's not happy, you can minimize the movement, but there's not any pressure on your, your dodgy shoulder, just, unless you lie on it. But hips, they're impacted whatever position you're in. And the problem is, it's the least paid attention to joint, but it's with knees is the number 1 joint that needs replacing later on in life, because of the lack of attention people pay to the joint. And dodgy hips lead to dodgy knees, and knees will probably go before your hip joints.
The knees will go before the hips. So the knees get more work then.
Yes, if there's an issue, a lot of knee issues are down to hip issues, restrictions at the hip, which can also lead to, spine injuries in the lower back, and then tight ankles can also lead to, problems at the knee. So I would say hip issues, it's the least paid attention joint, and it moves in so many ranges. It needs to be strong, it needs to be mobile, you need to be able to move it independently from the legs and the spine. Yes, there's a lot to. As the song goes, your hips don't lie.
Indeed, yes, that's a good point. That's
your
a very
hips
good
don't
point.
lie. It's yeah.
So that leads me to another question, actually, and I know the answer to this, but I'm just curious as to your opinion. What bearing does weight bear or fare in this scenario? In terms of your body and movement, what bearing does it have?
It's a controversial topic. It depends. What is your weight comprised of? Are you mainly muscle? Are you mainly body fat? Are you combination of both? So a lot of times we blame people who are quote unquote overweight. I don't like that term because it doesn't mean very much. It's like, what's your body composition? However, if you look at some sports personalities, like, rugby players, they are not light individuals.
No.
They could be 20 stone, but they are strong, they are supple, and they're mobile. So therefore, their muscles are supporting their joint. They're supporting their joints. So it's not a weight. weight on the scales issue. For other, if you look at sort of people that do field, what you call it, exercises, so like shot put, discus throwers, javelin, again, they're not tiny people either. I'm talking about all genders, they're not tiny people either. However, they're strong, they're fit, they're supple. So the problem is the average individual nowadays are not strong and fit and supple, but their weight is high, so their joints, so there's no muscle properly supporting all of the joints. So it's what's your body composition is more
Right.
key than how much is on the scales. How much is on the scales?
Yes. Very
That's more
clever. I
important.
thought I would have caught you out with that question, but I didn't.
Yes, I get quite annoyed when all I see is some literature about, BMI. It's like, it doesn't matter. Most of those heavyweight sports personality will probably be classed as obese as well, based on the measure BMI. However, it's all about what's the body composition and are you free to move? So that's more important.
Well, that makes a whole lot of sense to me. Yeah, that's a very good answer, actually. I appreciate that. So,
You're welcome.
yeah, so now things are opening up a little bit more, but I know during lockdown, were you able to still carry on your business, and were you doing it online mostly, or how did that work for you?
Yeah, so it was a bit of it was just, the timing was just awful. I mean, it was a horrible time for everybody, but I just left the gym that time, end of 2019, because I was going to open up my own studio. So I rented beginning of the year, I rented a serviced office. I put a few bits of equipment in there because I wanted to train people one-to-one and focus on this corrective exercise element, which people in the gym really didn't care about. Because, I mean, basically, if I was in the gym those years ago and someone was talking about your foundations and weakness, I would ignore them as well, because I didn't really understand it. So that's why I opened up my own studio 3 weeks before lockdown. So I didn't even get started, basically. And then it was working out, how can I transition online? Because a lot of the education that I received, we're measuring joint range of motion, we're measuring pelvic tilt, but you can't measure online. So I had to adapt. And, I realized that there's still a lot of assessments I can do online. And actually, it was better, because if I can see it online, it means it's probably worse than it's worse than, in person. And also it allowed me, to sort of really focus on the key areas, because I could really see it online and what people were telling me. So I had to adapt like everybody else. So it was online. And then now this year is all about getting back in person and having a movement clinic and moving that forwards in my local area, but still having an element of online, because it quite works with the weekly check-in sessions with your clients.
Sure, yeah. Well, that's making a whole lot of sense. I mean, I think many people are realizing that having a hybrid situation going forward, because I was watching a webinar and seminar today, and they said you cannot get away from digital at all. Everything's changed. We must do some kind of element of online as well as, in person events, etc. Because there will be some that just can't make it, and you cut off your ability to expand as well your business by just making it in person.
Exactly. And some people actually like the online, because they don't need to travel somewhere.
Yes.
And so it works both ways. I mean, the initial assessment and teaching someone the program, assuming they're local, will be in person. And then weekly follow-up sessions or fortnightly sessions will be online, unless they wanted to come to the clinic. So I quite like the online world. I'm used to it. It's quite scary, actually, going back in person.
I know what you mean about being scary trying to get back in person, because as they say, the pandemic isn't quite over. COVID's still around. So and many people are reporting as well that they're getting a lot of weakness from it. Even people who were healthy before having caught it. are finding that they have to rest a lot more. They can't take stairs as much as they would like,
Mm,
and these types of things. It's
mm,
really weakening the body considerably.
mm.
So, strengthening things like what you do, and things like what I do as well, that really can help people as well to get
Absolutely.
back to optimum health.
Yeah, the thing is, it just impacted everyone so differently. So it's a case of finding out what's going on for you and taking it gently and small steps rather than rushing back into it. So, yeah, it's really important.
Yes, okay. Any other tips that you want to share? Because we're sort of coming near the end, but anything else that you wanted to share? Any parting
Yeah,
statements or
just
information? Well, you should tell us how we can reach you as well.
yeah, sure. So I think where my issues before is I ignored all of the telltale signs, all the little warnings my body was giving me in terms of sort of the joint aches and pains, the issues going on. So I really encourage people to listen to your body. We shouldn't fear pain. Pain is nothing to be like to block out. It's just your body's way of notifying you that there's something going on and time to start investigating, get curious. So if I did that before, I probably wouldn't have had the severe injuries or the severe back pain or the severe shoulder issues.
Sure.
So yeah, so don't be afraid of pain. It's just like a smoke alarm. So smoke alarm doesn't mean there's fire. It just means there's something going on.
Yes.
So
So check it out
yeah,
before it's a fire.
exactly. And also get curious, sort of find out what's going on in your body because it's always changing. It's always changing. Muscles length are changing. Some are getting tighter, some are getting, weaker. And yeah, just put small steps in place and get help, seek help. There are so many options out there. And there's a lot of stuff online as well. And if you don't fully understand, just ask. There are plenty of people. Me especially, I love talking about this. I love helping. So just
Mhm.
ask, send me a message and ask something, and I'm quite happy to offer my help. So yeah, so
Yeah.
my Instagram handle is Holistic PT Studio, so all one word. And my website is the same, www.holisticptstudio.com.
Okay.
And yes, and sort of my contact details are both on there. So send me an email, give me a call, and also on LinkedIn, but under my own name, Patricia Goka.
Right. Okay. Now, one other question I was curious because I tend to ask this not of everybody, but especially what do you know about oxidative stress, if anything? Because that seems
Oh,
to be a question that not a lot of people know about. What oxidative
yes.
stress is? Because sometimes working out a lot, if you work out a lot, especially many of the ones that are in the gym a lot, working for hours, they build up oxidative stress in their bodies,
Yeah.
and that weakens them.
Yeah, I think the term is no longer overtraining, it's about under recovery. So people don't factor in enough recovery time to let the cells regenerate. So basically strength training is you're destroying the muscle so that when it grows, when it repairs itself, it grows back stronger. However, you need that sufficient time for it to be growing back stronger rather than keep hammering at it. In
Mm,
terms of oxidative stress, there are so many different stresses in life, but they impact the body in exactly the same way. So, in my understanding, is that it doesn't matter what type of stress it is, whether it's sort of really intense or low level, prolonged stress, it's kind
mhm,
of killing your cells. Your cells are less able to regenerate. And because we are just a bunch of
yes.
cells, as in, cells make up tissue, which make up your organs. So the skin is an organ, every part of you is an organ. And basically, we are rebuilding our body every day. That's what's happening when we're sleeping, basically. And we want our cells to regenerate in a quote unquote healthy way, as in free of disease. And,
Mhm,
and the problem is if you're not giving that recovery time, or we're not adding like eating well, or sort of eating and sort of having water and things like that, of
mhm. Oh,
issues in terms of like skin issues. I know if I'm quite stressed, my eczema comes back. If I'm eating certain foods it doesn't like, that's another stress on my body and it doesn't like it.
yes.
So yes, you want your bones to remain, nice and strong. If you don't give the recovery time, it can't do that. Yes, so over exercising or under recovery time can also be a stress. If you're also stressed at work, that's another stress on top.
That's emotional stress on yourself.
Yeah,
And all of that can lead to inflammation, which I understand is also a precursor to a lot of diseases and problems that we get in our bodies, buildup of
yes,
inflammation. So,
it is. The problem is because we can't see it, it's hard to understand what's going on, and we're not monitoring every cell in our body, so we don't actually know what's going on. But the general, eat well, sleep well, drink water, and do some exercise is generally, and stress less, a kind of the healthy living lifestyle, which will work for most people.
yes, and not overdo it, as you say as well.
Everything in moderation.
Exactly. I was just going to say that. You took the words out of my mouth, but
Even moderation needs to be in moderation.
very good point. Thank you ever so much, Patricia. That's fantastic.
Thank you,
You
Linda.
cope really well with my grilling, so that's good.
Oh, I'm always smiling. There's no grilling.
Oh, great. All right. So thank you very much. And we will catch up with you very soon. And definitely, if anybody wants to get a hold of us or find out any information about what was discussed today, please feel free. You can email me at strictlyhealthyuk.co.uk or get in touch with Patricia, and I'll post the details in the video for replay for those who want to catch up on this. So thanks very much, and we shall catch up
Thank you.
with you very soon.
Thank you very much, Linda. Much appreciated.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye. That was Patricia Goka. She shared some excellent tips with us about how we can look after ourselves through movement therapy. She's a movement coach. So thank you for joining us. Join us again, same time, same space, 4 p.m. generally on a Thursday, and other times will be announced. Thanks again. Bye for now.